Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and just spreading positivity. We're all about the positive vibes here on the show. And with me today, I've got a very special guest. He is a former WCW Cruiserweight champion, Hardcore champion, and World Tag Team champion. You may know him as Crowbar or as Devon Storm, but with me today is the one and only Christopher Ford. Welcome, Chris, to Wrestling with Heart.
How are you, man? Good to be spreading some positivity. The world needs it right now. So this is a good thing.
Definitely is. All right, so let's get started. Tell me about your upbringing and childhood. Where are you from?
From Rutherford, New Jersey, right near the Meadowlands, Giant Stadium, little small suburban town, public school, been involved in the church since I'm a very young kid. Really small town with big time dreams. I'll never forget when I spoke to my high school guidance counselor. She goes, "What do you want to do?" I go, "I want to be a pro wrestler and a physical therapist." And she looked at me, and in hindsight, justifiably so, like I had about 18 heads, because it's not two things that usually go together. At that time, physical therapy was a very intense, difficult profession to get involved with. The schooling was difficult to be accepted into. So having those two things as goals were very out of the norm, and thought not to be a great idea. But for the most part, small town football, Cub Scouts, church, the whole nine yards. Pretty much a really small town upbringing. I was a very weird kid. I was definitely one of the weird kids. Back then, they never diagnosed ADD, ADHD. We were just weird. So I was definitely that weird kid. Had a very horrible stutter growing up. Couldn't get two words out edgewise, and just see, I wasn't always this cool guy I am now. You got to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But very strange childhood, social outcast, but I had a handful of really good friends that were weird just like me.
Well, it's always good to find people that you have stuff in common with and can relate to, and that's what brings friends together, and that becomes your family, that becomes your crew. And
absolutely,
that's just amazing to hear that you're able to go through all these different things as a young kid, and look at you now. You're just doing so many cool things. Let's talk about professional wrestling. Were you a fan as a kid growing up? How'd you get into wrestling?
Was always a huge fan. One of my earliest memories that I recall was we lived in a little Cape Cod house, and my bedroom was in the back, diagonal from the living room. So I remember wrestling used to come on later at night. My brother and sister were 10 and 11 years older than me, so I was probably unplanned. But I remember my brother would watch wrestling with my dad on Channel 9 up late, and I would wait, and I was supposed to be in bed, but I would crack my door open and I would watch wrestling through the little crack in the door, and I was able to see it on the TV there. And I fell in love with it instantaneously, loved the larger than life characters, loved the athleticism, loved all the comedic stuff you saw too. And just as I got older as a youth and as a teenager, that love for the sport grew more and more. My interest and enthusiasm for the sport grew more and more, and it eventually got to a point where being a fan just wasn't enough. We used to look forward to, me and my strange group of friends would look forward to the at that time on a monthly basis, they would air the MSG shows from Madison Square Garden on the MSG network, and we would all get together. We would watch it, and those house shows were fantastic. You saw some marquee matchups, and that was a monthly special event.
Monthly special event. Wow. So were you big, like, did you follow all the companies, or was there like one particular one that you would watch religiously?
It was mainly WWEF growing up here, and then later on when we got cable, I saw some of the NWA stuff, which I liked. As a child, I was more into WWF because that's what we were given more of. It was more
Accessible.
readily available. It was more accessible. As I got older and I got more and enthusiastic and just engrossed with the wrestling product, I started to watch all brands and any kind of wrestling I could find. I would watch. I would watch WWF. I would watch the NWA on Sports Channel. I believe they had the USWA. There might have been the Texas Wrestling.
Tennessee.
Global was on for a while. I watched whatever I could see. There was even on like Access TV or one of the like really like low on the totem pole channels. They would once in a while air IWCCW wrestling, and I loved watching that. And you would see guys like Taz and Tony Rumble and Surfer Ray Odyssey on there. So whatever I could get my hands on, whatever I could get access to, I watched it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best way to get hooked, is just watch as much stuff as you can. I think it's incredible to see the progress of how wrestling has evolved in terms of the alternatives, because now you can watch anything at your fingertips. And there's a lot
Absolutely.
more companies now than, let's say, 20 years ago, where you only had like one game in town. So I kind of liken today's stuff to the stuff back when you were watching, because there was a lot of stuff back then too.
There really was. And what was exciting was when you watched all these groups, it was exciting when you would be watching WWF or NWA and you would see the vignettes building up for this guy coming. And it was a guy that you recognized from one of the smaller companies. And it was cool seeing this guy get there comeuppance, for lack of a better word. Oh wow, he's going up with the WWE. That's awesome. WWF, whatever, or going to the NWA, and you were already familiar with them from the smaller groups. So it was good seeing guys you liked kind of get promoted up to the bigger shows, and if you knew them from the smaller shows, it just added excitement to it. It was cool.
Yeah.
You were pulling for that guy that you watched on a smaller program finally getting to go up to the bigger show.
Case in point, Scott Hall,
Sure,
aka Razor
absolutely.
Ramon. I
Yep,
remember,
big time.
yeah, just watching a lot of his vignettes on YouTube and seeing the progression he made, even from back, I believe he was in Tennessee, and now, he was in WCW, then made it to the WWE. Of course, later went back to WCW, but that character, Razor Ramon, people still talk about it. People still remember it. The theme music, the Scarface inspired character, people still remember it. So that's a perfect example of that.
Another case in point, watching the Southern wrestling, and then they come out with the Undertaker. First you had Brother Love, and then you had Paul Bearer. Oh my God, that's Percy Pringle. And wow, I remember him from the other show, and that was a really good case in point, too.
Yeah, definitely. Who are some of like your favorites to watch growing up?
My favorite then and now, without question, Randy Savage.
Oh yeah.
Uh, I always got sucked into the yeah, oh yeah, just the robes, the sunglasses, the headbands, Miss Elizabeth, and on top of that, he was just an incredible athlete too. He really was the full package of being a great entertainer and a great wrestler. And as you get older and you go along in the business and you watch, you would see him just be a phenomenal athlete. He caught me instantaneously. And now being involved with wrestling now, he was on the main shows and he was on uh primetime wrestling, Tuesday Night Titan, TNT. His character was always out there. And you got to see the character outside the ring, which is almost as exciting and interesting as the character inside the ring. And I've said this many, many times. If he was still alive, if he knew how to base for or take today's modern moves from today's modern wrestlers, his style, his character would still hold up 1000%.
And he definitely transcended the business. You got people that are outside of the wrestling bubble quote Randy Savage. Think of the
Absolutely.
Slim Jim commercials that you see, or the "oh yeah, dig it," snap into a Slim. He really transcended the entire wrestling
He's
world
a pop culture icon.
without question. And like you said, his costumes and his character, I think Ms. Elizabeth definitely added to that presentation of the Macho Man character. And it's really amazing to see that legacy still continue to this day when people think about him. Jay Lethal is definitely a wrestler that kind of was inspired by him and the work that he's done. You can kind of tell there's some influences with Savage.
I still watch Randy Savage on an almost daily basis, and every single time you could pick up something. I always watch as a fan, but I could always pick up something professionally that, wow, that was cool. Maybe I'll incorporate that. Wow, I've never seen that before. He was just such a perfectionist and a consummate professional. The guy was awesome.
No
But
doubt.
he's just as enjoyable to watch as a fan as he is as a professional and a student.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's kind of talk about your beginnings in the business, your career. You made your debut in the early 90s, 1992. Tell me about the training process.
So as I got older, my love for professional wrestling grew. My enthusiasm for professional wrestling grew. I would pick up all the wrestling magazines. You got Pro Wrestling Illustrated, The Wrestler. There were tons of wrestling magazines there where you would see the guys you watch on TV, but you would also see the guys up and coming through the independents. Once in a while, you would see an advertisement for a wrestling school, and at that time there were schools, in Canada. The closest one to me was down South Jersey, which was approximately like maybe two and a half hours away, which is rough. Uh, they say it's fate. Through somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody, I became aware of a guy that was going to open up a wrestling school with Iron Mike Sharp as the main guy. And I found that out, met the guy, found out what tuition would be. I knew it would be opening in approximately 6 to 8 months. I immediately got a job at a local catering venue that did like weddings and communions and bar mitzvahs, like a big catering hall as a bus boy. And I worked Friday, Sunday, Saturday and Sunday whenever I could. I would do double shifts. I saved my pennies, and as soon as I had enough, uh, 2, 3 times a week, I would drive down to Bricktown, New Jersey, which was about an hour and 15 minutes or so. So a lot closer than 2.5 hours. Big difference, especially on a school night. I was still a junior in high school, and I went to Iron Mike Sharp's pro wrestling school, and that I first got involved and got my hands on the basics.
Definitely, it's not an easy thing becoming a professional wrestler. It takes a lot of discipline, and it's intense. The workouts you guys do, the drills. I mean, I've seen some videos of like pro wrestling training. It's not it's not ballet at all by any stretch of the imagination.
And I'm not downplaying what guys go through now, but it was a lot different back then. Before they took your money to train you, it was almost like you had to be vetted. They didn't let anybody in to become a professional wrestler. They let you do a few sessions, make sure you really wanted it. They banged you up pretty good, not hurt you, but like they banged you up to make sure you wanted to do it, and you had to show them that you really wanted to be part of the industry and in order to be accepted, um, for lack of a better word, into the wrestling culture.
what were some of the things that you experienced that you can kind of give an example of when you're talking about some of the things that you had to do in order to?
Just a lot of bumps. They would get you into some holds and apply some pressure. Not enough to injure you, but enough to, they're there, and they would blow you up, meaning it gets you really fatigued where you're sucking wind. You might want to puke, and
Mm,
they would put you through some tough workouts. And some guys quit.
mm, yeah,
More than a few quit.
yeah, it's a very hard business. You have to be very
It's not
physically
like
fit.
that now. That's changed a lot with the times. It is a business now, and it always was a business. But now the schools open up; they want students. They need revenue, and it's just the way. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but they test potential applicants a lot less than they used to.
Mm,
And it is what it is. It's not right or wrong. It's just different.
yeah, definitely, definitely a different world compared to back then when you started. And so you
Sound
were
old. Back when I started, back in the day, we had boots with no bottoms.
so you were doing the independent scene for a while. Any memories of that time?
It was really a eye-opening experience. After I learned the basics from Iron Mike Sharp, uh, a wrestler named Bill DeMott and Jim Powers went to my gym locally, and I had seen them for years. I was always a big wrestling fan. Never really spoke to them all that much. As I got braver, I would talk more about wrestling with them, and you- they were always super nice. They never uh, shrugged me off. They never ignored me, whatever. And I told them that I wanted to be a pro wrestler, and they both encouraged me very much. They said, it's really, but they gave me the honest truth. They said, it's a tough business. The business will never love you the way you love it. Expect nothing from it, and make sure you have something to fall back on, because a lot of us don't. And don't go into this blindly thinking that that's the one thing that you're going to do. So I met those guys, and early on, they taught me to prepare for life outside of wrestling, and they gave me the bitter, tough truth. And once I got involved on the independents, I'm not going to name names. I don't need to name names. The story stays the same, but I saw a lot of guys that I grew up watching, or guys that I saw from the TV that were older, and they were in a locker room, and as excited as I was to be there being a new wrestler, these guys were miserable, and they were saying, what's wrong with the business, this sucks, that's this. And it being involved 32 years now, a lot of what they said and a lot of what made them angry was the fact that they were there not because they wanted to be there, but because they had to be there, and they had to keep pushing when their body really couldn't do it anymore. And I saw how they almost resented professional wrestling, and I knew that very early on, seeing that was not going to be me. I generally loved this thing, and I was going to do whatever it was within my power to protect myself outside of wrestling, to ensure I always had a way to put money on the table for myself. At that time, I was thinking, if I ever do have a wife and kids, and I will never get to the point where I'm miserable and I hate wrestling like these guys do. Here we are.
Yeah, I mean, very, very good that you were able to catch that at such a young age, because you don't want to become jaded. You don't want to become have these thoughts that maybe this is something that I shouldn't do. You,
I was given a heads up from Bill DeMont and Jim Powers, and then once I got in, I experienced exactly what I did. So all those things combined helped to guide me and help me make some really good decisions.
yeah, you had people that took you under their wing, and were able to give you that experience, and the fact that you were able to be determined, have that determination and confidence. I mean, that says a lot. So kudos to you for being able
Thanks, man.
to do that. You're welcome. Okay, so before WCW, You actually had a stint in the WWE, WWF, competing in the light heavyweight division. There was a tournament to crown a new light heavyweight champion in the late 90s. Tell me about that.
I'll take you back before that. Actually, before that, I actually had a stint first in WCW as Devon Storm.
Oh,
Mullet,
wow.
neon green and black. I wrestled Conan on Nitro, and I had a few matches on WCW Saturday Night. From there, I went to ECW for about a year. I totally did not fit the culture there at all. And then from there, uh, went back to WCW with my partner Ace Darling for a little bit, doing tag team matches on Saturday night. We were glorified enhancement guys. And then I finally, both me and Ace got a call to go up for the WWE heavyweight division. And all this while I was still a full-time student. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah, we definitely had Ace Darling on the podcast a while back, and he was talking
He's a good
about
dude.
great dude. We're talking about times wrestling for WCW. That period, that Monday Night Wars Attitude Era period, was just a big, big boom for the wrestling business. Lots of people, both companies had people switching sides, and you didn't really get to hear a whole lot about the undercard, the mid carders, as much compared to your main event talent and the big stars, the mega stars that you guys know about. But the light heavyweight division, you had some incredible talent there. The cruiserweights, the Juventud Guerreros, the Dean Malenkos, the Rey Mysterios. Tell me about how you kind of got involved with that division.
As a fan, I actually thought it was a great show, Nitro, when it was hot. As a fan, I enjoyed watching the Eddie Guerreros, the Malenkos, the Chris Benoits, the Juventud Guerreros, the Mysterios, all that stuff. You got all that. You even got a chance to see some of the more well-known independent guys that were out on the circuit earlier on, and then you had your superstars. So you really got to see everything. It really was a circus, and not in a bad way. Okay, here come the clowns. You don't like the clowns? Okay, well, uh, with the lion tamer's next. Okay, you don't like the lion tamer? Well, uh, with the guy riding a motorcycle and with the big sphere is next. There was something for everybody on that show, and it was enough to keep you tuned in. It really was from soup to nuts, for lack of a better word, phrase. For a fan, you got everything, and then if you want to break up the cruiserweight division, if you were one of those individuals that enjoyed lucha libre, quite often you saw lucha libre matches as well. That show gave you everything at that time.
It definitely did. And so you were in the tournament competing for the light heavyweight championship in the WWE. Were there
Yeah,
plans to bring you on board working for the company?
they knew that I was a full-time student. They knew Ace was a full-time student. There was talks, believe it or not, at that time that they knew I had a few years left of school, and there was some serious discussion that I would come on as an opening match guy, maybe a light heavyweight opening match guy, and also be an on the road physical therapist for WWF. At that time, they had no therapist, they had no trainer, they had nothing. So that was one of the discussions that just kind of fell by the wayside. But it was talked about back and forth for some time.
Okay. And so WCW picked you up, and you had a heck of a career there. You got to be with the late Daffney and David Flair. You were placed in a faction with them. Tell me about that experience. What was it like working
I,
with those guys?
I graduated school, worked for about a year, and then I got signed to go down there. I moved down there. I went to the power plant regularly to get myself sharper. I had been a pro for some years at that time, but I wanted to be more sharp. Went down to the power plant, and I had done about I'd say maybe 6 or 7 matches on WCW Saturday Night as Devon Storm, and it was a darker version of myself, dark hair, gothy look, uh, real evil looking. And then as the story goes, I flew out to Denver. We had a Saturday night taping in Vail, Colorado that I was going to be on. So I had gotten in after the guys were getting back from Nitro or Thunder, which I was not on. And I walked in to the hotel restaurant bar. I had a leather jacket on, hair down really long. And I guess Vince Russo took a liking to the way I looked. Uh, at that time, David Flair was drawing our rating. Whenever he was on, they tracked it. He was pulling a good rating for whatever he was doing. He was going around terrorizing people, stalking women. He was playing this crazy, crazy character. But unlike his father, not a very strong in-ring performer. So they thought, okay, let's put David in a tag team with a more competent partner. We'll let the partner do more of the wrestling. And Crowbar was born.
Who came up with the name?
At that time, as part of his craziness, stalking and bothering people backstage and terrorizing people, he was hitting people with a crowbar. So we shot a skit in Salisbury, Maryland, where I was the attendant at a gas station. I have a run-in with another customer. David drives up in a car with Daffney. He sees me yell at this guy. David and Daffney are both crazy. I'm doing crazy stuff. He asked me what my name is, and the line was, "Some people call me Crowbar," and we just click, and the rest is history.
Man, talk about a tag team you don't want to mess with. And Daphne, she, from all accounts, got to hear just unbelievable things about her. Just a little
Nothing but good.
sweetheart. Nothing
Great
but good.
person.
Great person.
Yep.
Man,
Absolutely.
what was it like working with her?
We were three kids just having a great time. We were all relatively young. A lot of people in that locker room were, like any kind of entertainment, pro wrestling, you have the whole, you know, politics, people being suspicious, this and that, backstabbing. We were just enjoying the ride, three young kids in the middle of a cool thing, a cool push. And we just learned and laughed and smiled, and uh it was just a great time. We traveled together often. Uh, when it wasn't David, it would be me, Shannon, and Shane Helms, who's just a great, fun guy. And
Hurricane.
yes, and as we got more involved with the character and stuff, Shane Helms and myself started to train Shannon to do some moves, and we added them into the matches, and it was just she's just a great friend, great person. Walk into a room, light up a room, great personality, never a bad thing to say about anybody. And if you ever seen her with fans, she would always, like, some people just say, "Hey, how you doing?" She would stop, kneel down to a kid, ask the kid questions about school. Christmas is coming, this is coming, and she'll actually engage with these. So she was super great to her fans, way better than most of us. We should all strive to be with our fans how she was with the fans. She's an incredible person, and all three of us collectively, we enjoyed the gimmick, we enjoyed the push, and had a whole lot of fun.
Man, that's really nice. That's really cool. Who have been some of your favorite opponents that you got to be in the ring with?
One of my favorite guys coming up as I got into high school, got a little older, started watching more of the NWA, was Terry Funk. So getting to work Terry Funk for the hardcore belt at Starrcade, which was WCW's version for all intents and purposes of WrestleMania. That was their WrestleMania. That was mind blowing. Hardcore, a whole lot of fun. Got to work with Terry, which was great. Got to work with one of my favorite matches was actually on the Worldwide, the Saturday show, against Alan Funk, who wrestled as Kwee. Vampiro was a whole lot of fun to work with. Chris Benoit, a whole lot of fun to work with. Booker T, even. There's a laundry list of just great wrestlers that had I not been signed, I probably would have gotten the opportunity to wrestle with. But it's, it was just a great ride, man. It was cool.
Were you with the company at the time that WCW closed?
I was released just before it was sold.
Okay. Were there plans? Were you in talks with WWE possibly going there following the sale? What?
After I got released, I had several dark matches. Great reaction. I'm not a delusional guy. A lot of people, oh, I got a great no, like I got a great response at the Garden, great response, Hartford Civic Center, as well as Philly at the with First Union, I think it was called at that time, and a lot of people backstage swearing up and down that I'd be signed. I had with the smart marks, the sheet guy saying that I'd be signed, and just it didn't happen. Uh, and in hindsight, it's probably the best thing that never happened to me. Had I got signed, I probably never would have met my wife, opened a business, had my two wonderful kids, and so again, at that time, it was rough, but in hindsight, I could say without question, without reservation, the best thing to never happen to me.
Well, kind of on a even positive note, we'll kind of switch gears and talk about the stuff you've done outside of the business. You're also a certified personal trainer, physical therapist. How did
Physical
you
therapist for
physical
25 years.
therapist?
Yeah.
Tell me about how you got involved with that. You said you wanted to do it since high school.
Yeah. I injured my knee my freshman year of high school playing football. I injured my other knee my junior year of high school playing football. Went through a lot of physical therapy. Really enjoyed it. It- uh, so again, at that time, a bad thing. I hurt myself once. I rehab it. I hurt myself second time. Rehab it. At that time, you're bummed. You're out of football. You're not playing. In hindsight, you always look. I always say God has a plan, especially every time I look back throughout my life, had it not been for those two injuries, I would have never been exposed to physical therapy. Who knows what I would be doing right now? So a really great thing. I applied to Keene University. It was a state college. Uh, it really was the only one I could afford. So, and at that time, they got thousands of applications. You couldn't just go to be a physical therapist. You had to apply for the program. You had to take a set of prerequisite classes, and after you took those, you would apply for that major. You couldn't just get the major, and they got a few thousand applicants each year. They accepted 32, and I got in. And the way I got in was I pursued wrestling. I pursued physical therapy. I went to the gym at night. Uh, I went to school. I did my homework. Went to the gym at night. Wrestled on weekends, and had zero social life. So I always tell people that have something, if you want to pursue pro wrestling, you need a backup plan. And so often I hear from the kids, there's no time. It's too hard, this, that, and the other thing. I did what I did when there was no such thing as online class. No such thing. Didn't exist. You had to physically go to the class. You physically had to do the work there. So at the end of the day, if you want something bad enough, and I strongly advise anybody getting involved with pro wrestling, you got to have a backup plan. There's no two ways about it. I've done a few talks here or there, and they asked me what is the best thing I could do, and I'll say I made it to WCW for almost 3 years. I held the cruiserweight title, the tag title, the hardcore title. Do you consider that successful? Do you consider that making it? And they all said, yeah, I would love to do that. That was less than 3 years of my life. I, in no way, shape, or form, made enough money to sustain myself or a wife or a family for the rest of my life based on those 3 years. So what do you do? And you got to prepare for life outside of wrestling. I have a major issue, and it's all well and good for motivation. You go on YouTube and you'll hear Arnold Schwarzenegger. You'll hear The Rock. You'll hear this, and they got music set back, and there's these highly motivational videos, and it's always something to the effect: if you want something bad enough, you put all your and energy into it. Know that you will achieve it. Know that nothing could stop you, and direct all your energy into that goal, and you'll get it. That's not real life. There's phenomenal independent pro wrestlers out there that will never make it, and they just never may be at the right place at the right time. They may never be given the correct opportunity. They may not meet the right people. There are phenomenal musicians, actors, actresses, all kinds of people in entertainment that are very super goal driven, and they have all their energy into one thing. And you got to have a plan B. And there's no reason why you can't have a plan B. I always say, reach for the stars, but do it responsibly, because what if? And I just get really hot at all these videos. I feel they're very misleading. I feel like they're not uh, real life. It feels great when you go up on stage and you motivate youth, kids in school, kids in college, and it is great for them to have a dream. It is great for them to have a vision. It's all for them to pursue that. But you got to prepare. The world is a cruel place, and you could put all your energy into something and still not get it, and that's a harsh reality. You gotta have a plan B. You gotta have a plan C, and it's that plan B that I had when WCW ended. I was able to easily transition back into that, and I went from full-time pro wrestler, part-time physical therapist, to full-time physical therapist, part-time wrestler. I've taken off for 8, 9, 10 months at a time when real life was just too busy and I couldn't wrestle. And fast forward to where we are now. I'm 32 years in the pro wrestling industry. I'm able to participate. I'm able to excel. I believe I'm able to do these matches, and it's on my own terms. And it's because I had a plan B that I'm able to do that. It's enabled me. It's empowered me to still pursue my dream. Where it goes, I have no idea, but I'm having a hell of a good time. So that's just a huge thing. I did it. I did it at a time when there was no online classes. They didn't exist. I pursued two things that required 100% of my attention. I somehow found a way to make it work. Anybody aspiring to be a pro wrestler, or I'd argue in any kind of entertainment, you got to have a solid plan B.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of truth to what you're saying there, because it is a tough world out there, and it's very rough. It's not an easy path to carve.
And shoot for the stars, freaking do it. Just do it responsibly. That's all. Just in case, be it another major, another career, a trade, a business, have that thing waiting just in case. Yeah. And a lot of those YouTube videos, a lot of those whatever, get a lot of clicks because they sound great. They filter in this very motivational music, and it's great, and I love it too. But you mislead people into thinking all I have to do is work really hard and I'll get exactly what I want. And that sounds phenomenal, but it's not the way the world works, unfortunately. You got to have a plan, maybe a plan B that you still like. It's something else that you like. It doesn't have to be drudgery plan B, but find a plan B that you can do, and that there's a future in, and that you could support yourself and your family doing. I get super mad when I hear these motivational videos, or I've spoken to youth that come to me as patients and say, "Oh no, this is my goal. If I have a plan B, then I'm admitting that I'm going to fail." I said, "No, you're not admitting you're going to fail. You're admitting that you got something else just in case." Again, I go back to when I talk to aspiring wrestlers or young wrestlers, I go, I was in WCW for almost 3 years, Cruiserweight Hardcore Tag Champion. do you consider that successful? And they all say, yes, I would love to have had an opportunity like that. What I made in those almost 3 years was not enough to last me the rest of my life. You have your Rocks, you have your John Cena's, you have Stone Cold Steve Austin. Those are all exceptions, not the norm. It's great that those guys had great success, and it's easy for somebody that's had great success to tell people all you have to do is commit to it 100% and pursue your dreams, and you're going to get it. It doesn't happen like that. Not all with the time, at least. For every Rock, for every Stone Cold, for every John Cena, for every whoever, there's a million people that put in the same amount of effort that just worked just as hard and didn't get the same result.
Yeah. Somehow, some way, if you just build a future in something that you want to pursue and do for a living, there's another avenue for you to go towards.
And if you have plan B, like, it empowers me, it enables me at 49 years old to go out there and bust my butt and have a great time doing what I love doing.
Definitely, there's a lot of similarities between pro wrestling and physical therapy, especially with a lot of injuries, and it still requires some of that physical work, albeit probably not as treacherous as pro wrestling is. But tell me about some of the similarities you've noticed when working with people in physical therapy that learned from professional wrestling.
Uh, I've I've been able to help a lot of people because a lot of injuries that I see are injuries that I've had myself. I've dealt with myself, and when it's yourself, you really dig deep. You analyze what's going on. You want to get yourself better. So one of the things that's kept me going over 32 years, and as I say, at 32 years in wrestling at the level that I do, that not many people my age, not many of my peers can say, it's that physical therapy background has enabled me to identify and treat problems before they become bigger problems. Historically, professional wrestlers are not people that rush right to the doctor. Many, unfortunately, are uninsured, so they can't afford to go to the doctor, or they choose not to, or whatever the case may be. A lot of professional wrestlers are very proficient in the gym, but they think that gym knowledge translates into physical therapy knowledge, and it doesn't. And unfortunately, a lot of these guys try to treat their own injuries, or they try to manage their injuries with gym knowledge, and they end up making these problems worse. So just having a professional wrestling background combined with a physical therapy background, I believe, has enabled me to keep wrestling all this time. It's helped me to help other pro wrestlers. I do consultations where I confidentially help people that may have an injury. They might be in the middle of a big push, or they may foresee a push coming in the future. They don't want to go out injured. I always tell them professionally, as a physical therapist, a prudent thing would be to rest and not wrestle. But that being said, if you're going to pursue this and you're going to attempt to continue the wrestler, here's some things that might help you do it without making your injury worse, or maybe help heal your injury along the way. It's two knowledges that come in very handy for myself, as well as many of the people that I deal with
Why do
outside
you
of the
Yeah.
general population.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely important to see something that maybe somebody's having trouble with, or somebody's struggling with a muscle that you kind of have to help them figure out ways to work around certain things. Why do you feel passionate about helping out in your community?
Uh, I genuinely love physical therapy. So when I had to go from full-time wrestler, part-time physical therapist, to full-time physical therapist, part-time wrestler, wasn't a bad thing. I thoroughly enjoy both things, and because I'm so passionate about both, when I work with guys in my industry, when I work with fellow wrestlers, it's just the best of both worlds. It's a different experience than when I'm dealing with regular patients because I'm stretching somebody out or I'm showing somebody how to make themselves well. And we always get off on a little tangent and we talk wrestling talk a little bit. And it just makes it really makes the whole experience an amalgam of two things that I love doing.
When you have people that come see you, are they shocked to find out, oh my gosh, this is a former pro wrestler, this is a pro wrestler?
Many people already know because my practice is in my hometown. So my history within professional wrestling is very well documented locally. So a lot of people know. Once in a while, I'll get a wrestling fan that's not aware of my other professional come in and they'll say, "You look a lot like whatever." Well, my hair's pulled back.
Yeah.
I may have my glasses on instead of my contacts, but eventually they'll say, "Oh, you look a lot like," and then there we go. If you go to my Twitter page, I have my demo video. There's this big guy with a half a mask on there, and his name is Adam Kerr. He came into my practice. Now it's probably got to be 6-7 years ago as a patient, wrestling fan, but a patient non-wrestler. Recognized me. We formed a rapport, a friendship over professional wrestling. And after his rehab, I helped to get him involved with a local wrestling school. And now he works with me on and off on the independent scene.
And you're giving him
And he
the
started
tips.
out as a patient. Yes.
Yeah. You're giving him the tips and the knowledge that you're passing along to me and to anybody that as a fan or somebody that wants to pursue the business in some form or fashion. So it's incredible. Ed is just so awesome. Well, Chris, I want to say thank you for coming on to Wrestling with Heart. It means a lot to me and to the listeners and viewers. Where can people find you on social media? If you've got anything you want to plug or promote, feel free.
Like I said, it's one of the most challenging things of being involved in pro wrestling right now is time. I am a perfectionist. I like to work hard. I like to better myself. I always like to do a better match. But I have a full-time business. I own my business. I'm a husband. I'm a dad with 2 kids. I like to be a present dad and active in all their activities. So although there are a lot of social media avenues out there, I'm mainly on Twitter. I only have time to do one right now. So at WCW Crowbar, you can find me there. If I get into character, don't take it seriously. I'm a bad guy. Don't take it too seriously, but I will once in a while share a few glimpses into real life and you could tell what's what.
Oh, man. So cool. Thank you again for coming on to the show, and you're more than welcome to come back.
Thanks so much, man. Great talk.
Yes, definitely. Take care. Have a wonderful day.
Positivity. I love it.
All right. Have a good one. This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.